This here is OPPO's latest foldable. It is the Find N2 Flip. So the flip design is the vertical flip style, so it folds up like so. It makes it a little bit more compact to fit in, say, a pocket or even a carry bag or something like that. So the screen is 6.8 inches. It is a AMOLED screen, 120 Hz, supports HDR10+. And because of the 120 Hz, the UI is also running at 120 frames per second. So it's very fluid, running ColorOS 13 based off Android 13. Now with this model here, it also has a larger than the competition outer screen, which is 3.26 inches. Now it's all powered by the MediaTek Dimensity 9000 Plus. It has 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB of UFS 3.1 storage. This model here that OPPO sent out to me. And just to point out, I am an OPPO ambassador here. This is how I do have this device, but I'm not being paid for this review. And then this is what you'll find in the box. So we have our charger, which is a SuperVox 67-watt charger. Give you the charge time later on for that. Paperwork, SIM tray tool, Type A to Type C adapter, our Type C to Type A USB cable, and then our plastic clear style case. Design-wise, it looks similar to the competition with their flip phones, but we have a larger outer screen here. So this outer screen, which you can use to, of course, see all your notifications and everything on here, does offer quite a few levels of customization. Now it has 600 nits of brightness. It's an HD screen, and it is 3.26 inches. So rather large there. Now you'll find that the back here, this black model does look really good, and it doesn't pick up any fingerprints at all because of this matte style to it, the pattern on this glass. Now this is Gorilla Glass 5 that is covering the cover screen here. We've got a microphone, our dual tone LED flash, and then our cameras. So an 8 megapixel ultra wide, which I'll give you a bit of a spoiler here, yes, is the weakest camera of all of the cameras, and a 50 megapixel main camera. Now they are co-engineered with Hasselblad again, that is handling the optimization side of things. Now you'll see here we've got then our spine of the fold and the OPPO branding on it here. Now this looks really good, and it's made out of metal. The frame all around the outside is made out of metal, our capacitive always on fingerprint reader. Now when you open it up, the hinge mechanism feels good. Now it's not spring loaded, so it won't just automatically open up by itself, which does mean, of course, you can sit it up like so. You can use it in a flex mode with various different apps that do support it. And you can even use it as a camera tripod, for example, to take photos of yourself and just prop it up, put it on the timer. So it is handy. However, because of the lack of the spring mechanism really to it, that when it is fully open, I do find when I'm holding it, depending on the angle, you may occasionally feel it wobble a little bit. But the build quality overall is excellent. It is really good. So we have a Full HD Plus screen here, which is of course AMOLED, like the outer screen. This one is 120 Hz, supports HDR10+. And what about the crease? Well, you were going to see a little bit of it, but when I first saw it, laid hands and eyes on it for the first time in Malaysia, I really could not see that crease because I was looking at it directly. But yes, when you turn the screen off, and I'll just get it to reflect now a little bit, you can see there, okay? Clearly there is quite a bit of a crease there. But it just looks, here it actually looks way worse than what it really is in real life when you're handling it and looking at it. It is not a bad crease, and I believe it's better than the competition too. So right up the front here, we have a 32 megapixel camera. We have our secondary loudspeaker up here, the earpiece, and plastic around the outside. So there is about a millimeter here that raises up this bezel, so when it is closed, it's not actually going to be touching the screen. So you don't have to worry about if, imagine like a grain of sand was in there and then you close it up. It shouldn't press into it and shouldn't be a problem there at all for it. So this material, as I mentioned, really does resist the fingerprints. I think it looks great. There's black. It looks almost silky the way it is there. You can see the OPPO branding, Hasselblad. And right down the bottom here, there's a Type-C port that does not seem to support video out, loudspeaker, and our SIM tray here supports 2 nano SIMs. So at the top, you'll find a little port here for the loudspeaker, and then we have the other microphone used for noise cancellation and video and calls. So really good build quality. So this is 7.5 millimeters when it's open, 16 millimeters when it is closed, and the weight is 191 grams. And when you've got it closed up in the closed state here, it fits in the palm of your hand. So nice and compact when folded. Looking at our screen here in a little bit more detail, it's an excellent screen. It's up to 1600 nits maximum brightness, and I noticed that in direct sunlight, as you can see now, it is usable. You can see in text messages, WhatsApp messages, use the phone pretty much normally, and after a while, yes, it will start to dim down a little to reduce the heat from the screen. This is normal, all other phones will do this. Now the banding you are seeing, it's just on camera. You don't see that in person. And right now looking at the screen here where I'm currently filming, you may occasionally see a little bit of banding. Again, that is only in person. Now I don't see any settings for DC dimming within the settings, which I'll show you shortly, but it doesn't seem to have any flicker to me, not that I really seem to pick up on, and it is an excellent screen. So when you run your finger over where, of course, the folders, the creases, you don't feel that much, but there is a noticeable little tiny indentation there that's very, very minor. And when you're normally using it, pressing, it's not bothersome at all. Neither is the crease. You will not really pick up on it. Now, if I shine it now, you see just a bit of it here, but it's an excellent screen. So taking a look here, just at a few of the tests, this is the brightness at maximum. Now, those colors shouldn't be moving about, but that's just again a little bit of banding on camera. It's a very good looking screen. So great brightness, the contrast is amazing on this, and the colors really do stand out. They are punchy colors, good. Those blacks, look how deep they look, even though it's saying green colors there for some reason. They are excellent, and overall, a top class, top tier screen here in the Find N2 Flip. So with the screen settings, you get Vivid, Pro mode, and you can adjust your color temperature, which is your white balance there. And I've been using natural. I find that to look best to my eyes, but we do have cinematic, brilliant too. So there's a few options in there, and I do love to see this when manufacturers just give us these options to tweak the displays, which earlier models didn't really offer us anything. You've got a natural tone display here, so nature tone display they call it. That's going to adjust to the ambient lighting. I tend to not actually adjust and fiddle with that one too much. So under fonts here, you can adjust the size. That's all pretty standard kind of Android 13 settings that you see there. And then our scaling, which I leave on standard. If you find it a little too big, then of course, just scale it down to the small setting. So we've got dark mode, everything else in there. There's just really no option there for DC dimming, but to my eyes, so far in using it, which has been now well over 3 weeks, I haven't really noticed any flicker. I don't think it's needed. I think the pulse width modulation rate that it uses is adequate enough. And then we have refresh rate options. So you've got 60 to save on the battery, or of course 120 Hertz. Unfortunately, no 90 Hertz option, which is the sweet spot, the in-between spot between being fluid and of course saving a bit on your battery life. Now the UI is very fluid and fast. This is using ColorOS 13 based off Android 13. And if I just go up into my recent apps here, I found everything to be really quick and fluid. Now I have the 8 gigabytes of RAM, which I believe is ample for most users. I don't think you're going to run into any problems at all with it. And multitasking is quick, going over to everything. Now this has been in the background for some time. It's a stock app, Photos, and it looks like it didn't have to reload, although it was showing a different preview there. Now Display Tester, I had that up before. It's not going to be killed off. So normally if it's a system app, it'll remain in the background for quite some time. But if it isn't, it will end up having to relaunch after around about 5 minutes. It really varies, and it depends on various different factors. It's part, of course, of battery saving. So we do have the App Store here, and again, performance really good, super fast and fluid. I do enjoy ColorOS. For me, it's one of the best, if not the best, Android skin that you can get nowadays. Now the cover screen, or the outer screen if you want to call it that here, is very large at 3.26 inches. As I mentioned, it's AMOLED and it is a HD resolution, so 720p. And it's bright, 600 nits, you can see a lot there. Now I've got it unlocked at the moment, and when you unlock it, you've got options then to use it. As our viewfinders, you can see photo, portrait, video. If I keep swiping there, we have the weather. You can customize it. There are options you can customize, the wallpapers, and a few other things there. So it is a very useful screen. So if I just turn it on right now and go into the photo mode, you see that's going to come up, and I'm getting a preview right now of where I am, and it's rather handy. The only shortfall is, as I'll mention later on, is that you cannot shoot with the video mode anything above 1080p. So you can't use the viewfinder, the cover screen here, and record 4K at the time of this video. I do hope that OPPO is going to change this, and that way we'll be able to record 4K with it. So the customization we do have for that cover display, where you've got the style of it here. So we have wallpapers, some of them are really nice, interactive pets, if you do happen to like that sort of thing. We've got quick replies, and this is handy if you're just replying to a quick text message or whatever. You can do that from the cover screen, and then widgets too as well. So I showed you a couple of those already, and that's the way I've got it currently set up, which is the default too. We've got recorder and then wireless headphones that you can also add to that if you wanted to do so. So there are a few good options in there for that cover screen. How does it fare when it comes to bloatware? So ColorOS 13 is very good. There are only really two bloatware applications, Facebook, Amazon shopping there, and then Relax, perhaps a third, which is great compared to some other manufacturers that have a lot of bloatware applications. It does pass the SafetyNet status here, so the SafetyNet, check, that's all good. And it does have a widevine level 1 cert. So that means Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, and all those kind of streaming applications do support the full HD. And with Netflix, we even get HDR, which is another positive. Camera 2 API, level 3 support across all of the cameras. So yes, you could use, say, Open Camera or those Gcam ports if you wanted to do so. The storage speeds, well, it's using UFS 3.1, and you can see there they are decent for this type of storage. Very quick. Again, that is not going to really slow down the system at all. The UI will not suffer because of those storage speeds or anything, and install speeds are fast. Antutu does show us that it's a very potent chipset. So this is just one loop of it, however, getting the absolute best result. Close to 1,000,000 points is excellent. That is similar to a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, 8 Plus Gen 1, I should say, sorry, and our Geekbench 5 score here. Again, that is a decent score, very good. So here, however, there is a weakness to it, and that is throttling. You notice it when you game. When you game, the phone does get hot. It throttles quite a lot. In fact, a huge amount here. So the performance drops down just over half, 50%. So it got down the stability to 48%, something I don't particularly like to see. So if you game a lot, you'll see that around the 5-minute mark, from then onwards, it basically just halved its performance from its peak performance, which is not good at all. So battery life with standard to what I would say light kind of use, I managed to make 7 hours and 48 minutes of on-screen time. And that is good for this style of phone because of the 4,300 milliamp hour battery. The fixed test that I do, you can compare it to my other benchmarks that I run. It's a respectable, very good score for this style of phone, being a foldable, getting 9 hours and 26 minutes. So real world use, you're looking over just 7 hours of on-screen time if you're taking it easy. Of course, if you game, you're going to definitely hit the battery quite hard when you game. So charging time is just over an hour at 64 minutes for me, but at one time I did actually get it to charge in around 54 minutes. So it can be just under an hour with the charge time with our Find N2 Flip. Then the audio, well, we don't have any 3.5mm headphone jacks on it at all. We've got the dual loudspeakers. You can use a Type-C adapter and it sounds fine. Now these loudspeakers, it's ported out of the top here. We've got the one down the bottom. So these dual loudspeakers, they do sound good. There's a hint of bass to them, good mids, trebles okay, and for loudspeakers in this style of phone, does not sound too bad. So I'll play a sample now of it at 100% volume. It's just to give you an idea what you can expect out of it, but they are good speakers and I don't see anyone really being disappointed in them. And how does that Dimensity 9000 Plus game? Well, on the top settings with Genshin Impact right now, it is running around about 50 frames per second and sometimes up to 60. But what I've noticed is that the longer you game and the more enemies you're battling especially, the more that's going on, it will start to throttle. So just like that 3D Mark test, after about the 5-minute mark of gaming, you notice the performance drop off. It'll drop down to about 40 frames per second, 45. So it does affect the performance, sadly, with the throttling that is taking place with the Find N2 Flip. Over to the cameras now. So we have a front-facing camera, 32 megapixels that can take 1080p footage only. It doesn't have 4K, unfortunately, with this 32 megapixel sensor. I hope they do add it with a software update. Now, it has electronic image stabilization, which is off by default. By default, it actually uses an AI mode, but I've turned on the electronic image stabilization. So right now you can see it is pretty steady, the footage. And as I pan around at 1080p, it doesn't exhibit any panning judders, which is good. So stabilization, even though I'm just walking along here, is good. This is usable. So I would just like to see, with this front-facing camera, a 4K 30 and 4K 60 option. So we can shoot 4K 30 frames per second video. It's very windy here at the moment, so no doubt the microphones are picking up a lot of wind noise. The stabilization looks very good, so it's optical and electronic stabilization. As I walk along here, you can see this is very steady. Good looking 4K footage. Currently 30 frames per second for my timeline, because the rest of my videos I do shoot at 4K 30, but you can shoot in 4K 60. There is no 8K video option. Just over in Waiheke here. Lovely day, just a little windy. This is our 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, so it can shoot 1080p 30, 1080p 60, but no 4K, unfortunately. Now, because it's only shooting 1080p, when you pan around, generally it does look quite smooth, and you shouldn't really see any panning judder coming through with this footage. It's using electronic image stabilization, so as I just jog ahead, you can see that that footage is relatively steady here. But I do find this 8 megapixel ultra wide camera is the worst of the 3 cameras with this phone. And this is now a sample of 4K 30 frames per second in low light. Still performance from the 3 cameras is very good. You can see this shot looking great, good colors. And this is a semi-low light here, indoors or underground, and it came out quite well. Now this photo here took from a boat. This is just the main camera again, very good. So anything during the day is going to look fantastic. This, however, is the weakness. The ultra-wide, not amazing quality, but it's an okay shot. And overcast conditions does actually look a little bit brighter than what it really was here. This is Auckland City too, by the way. Portrait shots, this is using the rear camera, and then the viewfinder outer screen came out really well. And low light for this style of phone, I don't think are bad at all. It's alright. This is indoors in a bar where you may be taking photos. Looked okay to me. And I really do find these cameras are a good set of cameras. It's just the ultra wide can be a little bit disappointing. So the final verdict, it is quite a good phone if you're after this foldable style here. So you like the vertical flip style, then this one compared to the competitors out there, I do believe is the better phone here, because you get the larger battery capacity, decent battery life for this style of foldable, the larger outer screen, and then the faster charging at 67 watts. And it charges in under an hour, which is pretty good. So the UI performance, good, fast, fluid, smooth, with ColorOS 13. It has very little bloatware, which is fantastic. And then that fingerprint reader, just to demonstrate it, does work really well. Quick at unlocking, it is accurate. Now the fold mechanism, I like the feel of it, but as I pointed out that when it's fully open, because it's not spring-loaded, I find that it can move about a little bit, but it doesn't seem like it's a weakness in the design. There's a very strong hinge here. I just wish that if it did have like a mechanism there to sort of clip it or lock it into place, it would just give it a slightly better feel to me. Other areas of weakness that I pointed out were the pretty obvious one, that the ultra-wide camera, it's only 8 megapixels and it does not take a very good photo. I really wish they'd used a better sensor, and perhaps a sensor with autofocus. The main camera, as I showed you, does take excellent shots. The video quality for 4K with the stabilization is good. However, it's very strange that when you use the outer cover screen here as a preview, as your viewfinder, that while you can use it for photos and your selfie, portrait shots and all that, you can only use it at 1080p for video quality, which is unusual. So you can hold it up, of course, get yourself in the shot, but you're limited when using that outer screen to just 1080p and not 4K, which is a slight downfall then. The other is, well, the Type-C port does not seem to support video out. I cannot get video out from it there. That's just probably a minor for most people. Aside from those little minor shortcomings there, this is an excellent foldable phone here and highly recommended if you are after this style of fold, the flip style here. So thank you so much for watching my full review here of OPPO's Find N2 Flip.